I told you about my 2013 Mustang GT and how I won it. But I feel like I need to tell you the origin story for me about how I got into Mustangs to begin with. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you for stopping by. Please hit the subscribe button. We'll see you here every Friday for some content, as well as, some bonus content throughout the week. Also want to remind you that I stream over on Twitch, link and times down in the description below. Feel free to come hang out. All right, let's take a trip down memory lane. You know the story about how I won my third Mustang. And I have names for my Mustangs. Actually, that's not true. I had a name for my third one and now my fourth one, but not my first and second. So I stand corrected. I've loved Mustangs for a really, really long time. I remember in high school, I had a short thing for Camaros, but naturally I do appreciate all vehicles, all cars. It's kind of a fun enthusiast. I don't know if I'd say hobby, but enthusiast. Ultimately, my best friend in high school got a 65 Mustang. 289 engine. It was like Oxford White or something like that. Anyways, that pretty much was a major influencer in why I got into Mustangs. He would later get a 2000 Mustang GT, which was really cool. And when I went off to college, well, even before that, in high school, I wanted to get a Mustang, but my parents wouldn't let me. And rightfully so. I played the drums. I needed a truck. But I got a Toyota Tacoma. And let me tell you something. The bed in that truck is too small for a drum set. Especially one that I had. I had a 7-piece drum set, really big. I'll talk about it some other time. It didn't really fit in that truck. And to make matters worse, I put a tonneau cover on the bed. So now the bass drum didn't even fit inside of the truck unless I took the tonneau cover off. So when it came time for me to get a different vehicle, I was going off to college. I needed more of a commuter car. I wanted to get a Mustang. True story. My dad actually said, "You're not getting a Mustang." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, you're not having a car nicer than me." Nicer than you? Okay. So, and I really wanted a Fox body. I wanted more specifically, I really wanted an 87 through 93 Mustang. I was okay with an LX model. I was okay with the GT model, but I wanted the hatchback. That was what I wanted. And I didn't get it. Under the influence of my parents, I ended up getting an Acura Integra 1999 two-door coupe. It was the GSR model. Ooh, GSR. And I thought that thing was pretty cool. I didn't realize that the Honda Civic non-SI model had more horsepower just a few years later. And I had that for a couple of years. And then my sophomore year of college, I grew a pair and said, "Mom, Dad, I'm getting a Mustang." And they were like, "Well, then, you're going to have to pay for everything. We're not going to pay insurance. We're not going to pay gas. So you got to take care of everything." I said, "Fine. I'm going to do it." And I did. So I sold the Integra, and then I used it to buy a 1994 Cobra SVT. It was the second year of the special vehicle team, special trim of the Mustang. So officially, I think it's called the 1994 Mustang Cobra SVT. What a mouthful, right? It was white with a black pinstripe. And the guy that was selling it was in California on the west coast. He was kind of in the hills. Okay, so I took a trip with some stranger I didn't know to go check it out. And the guy had modified it. It was lowered. It had a Saline S351 wing on the back. The S351 wing is not the duckbill wing from the 281, but it's a 2-layered wing. It's kind of funky looking. And there was no other body kit on the Cobra, so it looked kind of weird. But whatever. He had tinted the windows and put a fat Cobra decal on the window. And it was in white, so it matched the paint of the car. Stark contrast to the tinted window. And he had installed some turn down mufflers. They were really loud. You know, the premise of the turn down is the mufflers, as soon as the tailpipe comes out of the muffler, it immediately turns down, and so the sound reverberates and echoes underneath the car against the road, and it is loud. Probably more loud outside than it is inside the cabin. Anyways, there were turn downs, and he had installed a cold air intake. That was, and he installed a Hurst T-handle shifter on the manual transmission. It was kind of funky, to say the least. But I gave it a test drive, and to be honest, I wasn't all that impressed. Yeah, it was slower than my 1999 Acura Integra, which only had 4 cylinders. Yeah, it had VTEC, but it also only had, I think, 170 horsepower or 175, something like that. And definitely not that much torque. So I was kind of like, something's wrong. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to get a Cobra. They were something of a rarity. I've only seen a handful in my life. It did have a beefier 5.0 engine. It did have some nice upgrades, and I didn't care for the wing. I didn't care for the Cobra decal on the rear window, but all in all, it was cool. And I was kind of trusting my gut feeling that I could figure out what's going on with the Cobra. I wasn't a mechanic, never been a grease monkey, not really handy at all. But my best friend in college, I thought he might be able to help me. So I kind of trusted my instinct, and I went ahead and bought it. And I drove it home and owned it outright, which was cool. Got some insurance. I got liability only, $28 a month through Eastwood. Probably not the smartest decision, but as a starving college student, it worked for me. And then I got, my gas bill was almost the same. It wasn't as good, but almost the same as the Acura Integra. The Acura Integra required 91 octane, and so did the Cobra. So I was still buying the same kind of gas. Just had to buy a little more regularly, but I was hardly ever driving, so it wasn't a big deal. And long story short, something was wrong with the Cobra. I said to my friend in college, I'm like, something's wrong. It doesn't feel faster than my Integra. And he drove race cars, actual race cars. So I had him get in the seat and drive it, and he's like, yeah, something's wrong. Let's go to the store. We went to Cragen's Auto Parts. Are they even still around? I don't know. We went to Cragen's, and we got some new spark plug wires, and a new ignition coil. And we installed those. It turns out that 2 of the cylinders weren't even working. one of the spark plug wires was grounding out on the header, and a completely different spark plug wasn't even plugged in all the way. It wasn't screwed in all the way. So I was only operating on 6 of the 8 cylinders, which made a lot of sense because I kept smelling a lot of gas fumes. Yeah. I also had to get a new mass air sensor because mine was bad. I don't remember how we arrived at that conclusion. So I got a new one of those from someone off of a forum somewhere, Raccoon Racing or something like that. Drove out to Oakland, took like 6 hours round trip, and but I got it for free and got that installed, and boom. Now we're cooking. Now we're talking. Plenty of torque, plenty of power. And I now had to learn how to drive a rear wheel drive vehicle with torque for the first time. My truck was rear wheel drive, but it didn't have the torque. I did lose control of the truck a couple times in the rain. But this was completely different. I did lose control of the Cobra once. I gunned it from a stop sign while I was also making a left-hand turn, and I overcorrected once, overcorrected twice. On the third overcorrect, completely spun out 180 into the opposing lane, stalled out. Woof. Yeah, that was scary. Fortunately for me, I didn't hurt anybody, but I could have. It was dumb. And that gave me a newfound respect for the Mustang. So, I did force myself to learn how to control the torque, and the rain came in useful. But I'm glad I did that because I would never want to, even if it was accidental, lose control of the car and then hurt someone. That would never be something that I would want, and it happened. I remember one time I was driving and I hit a bump, and then I hit a what was it? It was like train tracks or something, and I didn't intend for this at all, but it kicked sideways. I was able to control it. Another time I didn't intend for it, but I was turning and a car was coming, and so I gave it a little bit of extra gas, but with gas comes torque, and while you're turning and torque, that's not good. You can only apply so much torque before it spins out, and I kicked sideways, and I was able to avoid hitting some parked cars. Again, I didn't intend for that, but it happened, and thankfully I did learn how to cope with that. And the car was a lot of fun. So once I got it fixed, yeah, it was definitely faster than the Integra, but it was way more fun to drive. Who cares about top speed? Who cares about all that stuff? It's fun when you got massive amount of torques and a short wheelbase. Yep, a lot of fun. So I had that vehicle in a couple years. I did take the wing off and got an original 94, 95 GT spoiler. Couldn't get the original Cobra wing back. It was lost, gone. Those things were hot commodity, very rare. Once gone, never before seen again. I did have a GT trunk on it, so the GT wing made sense. And then I did take the Cobra decal off. What was cool about that is over the years from the previous owner, the sun had actually burned into the tint, so you could still see the Cobra decal, but in the tint. It was actually quite cool. And I had to get the cold air intake CARB approved through California. I was able to work that out. That was a pain in the ass, but I was able to work it out and then get it smog checked, no problem. And yeah, I had that car for a couple years, and then I met my wife, and in order to pay for her engagement ring, I sold it. I only lost $500 overall through the course of 2 years of owning it. The valuation of the vehicle had compressed considerably over the years. So while I had it for 2 years, it wasn't going to lose much value. So that was pretty cool. And with that, I bought my wife's engagement ring, and we got engaged later that summer. So, and then I ended up not having a car for a while, and then we ended up buying my second Mustang, which was a Saline. I'll tell you that story later. So, lessons learned from the Mustang experience for me. Number one, they're not that expensive to own. Maybe when they're brand new, sure. But when they were old, it was a great college car, especially for my first introduction into Mustangs. Overall, it was pretty reliable. I didn't have many issues. I only had 2 issues, so about 1 a year, and that was due to the age of the vehicle. The first issue I had was the mufflers came off while I was driving. Well, one muffler came off. And it's funny, I was going to go see my best friend in college. He was racing out of town, and I was driving to the fairgrounds, and I had the music blaring. It was Dave Matthews Band or something. And people were passing by me, pointing and laughing. I didn't know what was going on there. And one of the songs finished, and then there was that pause in between CD tracks, and I could hear ting, 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 ting. What's that noise? I didn't think anything of it, just whatever. More people drive by, pointing, laughing. Interesting. Well, I came up to a bump in the road, and it shook the whole car. Very jarring, very jolting. And now I can hear over my stereo. Oh boy. I get to the fairgrounds, and the entire way I hear. I was dragging a muffler. What had happened is, right before the muffler on the straight pipe, after the catalytic converters, it had broken apart completely. And so as I was going down the road this way, the muffler was pinging going this way. So ping, 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 okay? When I hit the bump, it just so happened to dig in. So let's say this is the bump. It went, and then it turned around as I drove by. Now it's hanging off of the hanger, and it's dragging on the road as I'm driving. Woof. So I ended up having to replace the turn downs with some more standard. It was more of a standard aluminum catback system from Mac. And yeah, that was fun. That was my first major problem with it. Second major problem was I started having electrical issues. It would battery would die and drain, and I didn't know what was going on. I know the original owner had to replace the alternator, but yeah, something was going on, and I took it to a shop, and they said, yeah, your cables are bad. And rather than getting Ford authentic parts, they were able to work something out, and it worked. I don't know what they did. They welded something together, and it worked. And that wasn't too expensive. That was like $125 plus labor, so it was like $225 or something. Not too bad. I did replace the clutch. The original clutch was a 40-pound racing clutch, and I replaced it with a King Cobra clutch, and that was great. During that time, replaced the main seal. I didn't do it. I had a shop do it because it was leaking. When I bought it, the car had 130,000 miles on it. When I sold it, it had 156,000 miles. Not too bad over the course of a couple years. And it was reliable. So it was cheap. It was reliable. It was fun. Great car. And then when I designed my 2013 that I won, I actually designed it after the styling of the 94. So black plastic caps on the side mirrors, white body, kind of the nickel style wheels, slightly different on the 2013. And yeah, so that was my tribute to the original Mustang that I had. If you want to talk Mustangs, I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Phonavone, link in the description below, along with the times. Stop by. Come ask me about Mustangs. I love talking Mustangs. I love talking cars. Thanks for stopping by and listening to me ramble about my Mustang. If you have a Mustang, I'd love to hear about yours. What have you done to it? Have you kept it original? Have you modified it? What color is it? What year is it? What's your story about Mustangs? They're a fun hobby, whether you're fanboy or not. And it's always fun to talk about it. So hit the subscribe button. We'll see you around later. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.